Hi, I'm Taylor Lanise, and I am going to be discussing the similarities between totalitarian governments in the book Brave New World by Aldous Huxley and in Germany under the control of Adolf Hitler. Okay, so first I have a general definition of totalitarianism. It's a centralized government that does not tolerate parties of differing opinion and that exercises dictatorial control over many aspects of life. The government is usually ran by one supreme leader and lower subordinates that kind of get all the orders and pretty much run everything. So my science fiction piece is Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. It was published in 1933, and it was sort of a prediction of what our world could be if we continue to let totalitarianism and all of that be tolerated in government. So a little background on the book. It's a world in which humans are genetically modified to perfection. Once hatched, humans began their life of bliss under the control of government. The residents experience a life lacking work, stress, and discomfort. So throughout the whole book, let's see the characters. They go on vacations when they get stressed out, whether it's they have a hangnail or they don't have any clothes to put on. They get real stressed out and they go on a vacation, or they kind of do stuff like that. Something that's real outlandish. Go through the characters. So the main female character, she is Lenina. She is perfect, skinny, blonde, blue eyes, beautiful. However, she is a second-class woman. She's a beta, which I'll get into later, and she's kind of promiscuous. We'll also get into that a little bit. And then we have John, the savage, he wasn't born in the world state, which is the society, what it's called, the world state. He wasn't born in the world state, but he was born from a woman. So he is known as a savage. He lives pretty much in a reservation, separate from society, looks at as inferior. Bernard Marx, which is the main male character in the beginning of the book, he rebels against the society, and he doesn't want to always conform to what everyone else is doing. He kind of has his own thoughts, and he's actually an alpha, which is the top of food chain. Mustafa Mann, he is one of the 10 people that run the world state, sort of high up in government, but he's actually friends with Bernard and John and all that. And Helmholtz Watson, he's Bernard Marx's best friend. And I think Huxley kind of put him in there as main character to kind of contrast Bernard, which Bernard tries to have his own views and tries to go against what everyone else is doing. Not so much rebel, but just kind of like, oh, I don't know if that's right, or I don't know if I'm going to do that. And Helmholtz kind of just goes with the flow, just pretty much a conformist in society. So now, over to the flip side, with Adolf Hitler, he was appointed to Chancellor in 1933, and then he became the Führer in 1934. He practiced Führerprinzip, which is leadership principle that means total authority, and that goes along with totalitarianism, as in he was the top, and then he had all his subordinates, ones to run the military, ones to run the people, propaganda offices, and things like that. His followers, the Nazi regime, he believed in racial purity, which along goes with the Brave New World, as in people were perfect. And he wanted to create a Narayan society, which was blonde hair, blue eyes, tall, strong, just kind of what he believed to be perfect in a person. And another thing that I thought would be a good comparison was the Racial Purity Act, which was enacted in July 14, 1933, which was, it was actually how, the way that Adolf Hitler put it was kind of, he wanted to kind of control the way that people reproduced. He put guidelines on whether or not you were intelligent or if you had hereditary problems, and he pretty much said, well, if you have all these problems, you're going to get sterilized, you're not going to be able to reproduce. And going along with the whole racial purity thing, the Holocaust, everyone knows about it, the genocide, oh my gosh. The genocide of people deemed undesirable by Hitler and the Nazi Party, the extermination of Jews, Gypsies, disabled persons, homosexuals, and Africans. Okay, now getting it back into Brave New World, the people were genetically modified from birth into their different sort of castes. Alphas and betas were superior, deltas, gammas, epsilons were the workers, and seen as kind of the inferior group. But they were still part of the society and they were still put to work. And now getting into another topic of my comparison is the science aspect. And in Brave New World, the way that the society was controlled and the residents were controlled was with Soma. And it was a drug that made them happy. It was sort of like a lot of drugs we have today, but kind of relaxed and increased sexual arousal and comfort and all that. And if you were having a bad day, or if you, well, there's really no bad days in World State, but if you were kind of, like I said before, I had a hangnail or something, you would take a gram of Soma and you would go on a high, and in a couple hours you'd be fine. And the hatchery is actually where the people were made. So thousands and thousands and thousands of embryos came out every single day. And like I said, they would be placed into a different caste, whether they were alpha, beta, or other ones. Another thing I kind of thought was cool was helicopters. Huxley, instead of using cars, would be like, oh, Lenina helicoptered over here one day, and then they helicoptered over there, and I thought that was pretty interesting. And so now getting into science in Adolf Hitler's world, everyone knows about grotesque experiments done on all the people, all the victims in the camps, and the medical experiments that were done on people. And subjects were involuntary, and the way that they got away with that was that, so that the Nazi Party, they condoned, medical experiments. They just wanted everyone to know that they are advancing and they are being the ones that are finding these things out, and they used the victims as subjects. And what I thought was interesting was, how did Adolf Hitler get all these people to be manipulated and help him out when what they were doing was so wrong? And what I found out was that propaganda was a big thing of it. And propaganda is ideas or statements that are often false or exaggerated and that are spread in order to help a cause, political leader, or government. And I found a quote, "Hitler for Germany, all of Germany for Hitler." And this is when he was sort of campaigning to be the Fuhrer, and he just made everyone believe that what he was doing was correct, and that all these people, like the Allies, were doing the wrong thing, and that what he was doing would help the world and advance the world, even if it was in the unethical way. Here's an example of a poster, and it kind of has all his people down there in the background, and the eagle flying up top, and the eagle is sign of justice, and just him holding a flag. He was just trying to further the people, and people just loved it. Then of course you have all his followers, Nazi Party, the Gestapo, secret police, and the guards and doctors in the camps that just followed him blindly. And the way that in the Brave New World, how Huxley pretty much had the world state, had them controlled, was again the Soma, and then the Hypnopedia was kind of was sleep control, and they would have, when kids would go to sleep when they were little, they would kind of send them the message like in their brain. They would play it and repeat it and repeat it, and just like the rules and the laws of the world state. Another mind control is death conditioning. Kids would go into hospitals every single week, and they would watch people die, and then they would get chocolate, or they would get other sorts of candies and cakes, and everyone would tell them, oh, death is a happy thing, it's a natural part of life, and no grieving, you can't grieve, because if you grieve, you get wrong ideas, and all of that. And then another thing was that really I didn't find anywhere, I just kind of interpreted it myself, was that there was no education in the world state. There was no schools, there was no anything. People, they got this mind control techniques, and they just kind of went with it. They didn't question it, they were happy, and they got everything they needed. And so the conclusion of my presentation is that if science isn't kept in check, we could have potentially gone into a Brave New World. If if we didn't stop him, he could have just kept us going and kept the concentration camps going. And where does that stop? Like, where does that end? When does it become unethical? And he didn't have that.
Very good. Any questions? Okay.